There are moments in a person's life when they feel an undeniable pull toward something greater than the ordinary rhythms that surround them. It is a strange and quiet stirring, one that whispers that perhaps you were never meant to be lost in the crowd, never designed to exist as a mere extension of the expectations of others. And if you have ever felt this whisper, then you are already standing at the threshold Machiavelli spoke of, the threshold of becoming rare. For to be rare, in his philosophical sense, is not about superiority, it is about self-definition. It is about recognizing that society moves in predictable waves, and most people drift with those waves without ever realizing they are being carried. To become rare is to know the currents consciously, to choose your own direction even when the tide pressures you to surrender to sameness. And it is in this conscious choice that a person begins to touch a kind of internal sovereignty. The very sovereignty that Machiavelli believed separated leaders from followers, creators from imitators, individuals from the collective fog of the unquestioned norm. Machiavelli understood something uncomfortable, that the world does not reward everyone equally, and that reward is often tied not to goodness or purity, but to clarity, strategy, and self-possession. Those who become rare are not those who shout the loudest or seek validation at every turn. They are the ones who shape themselves with intention. They refuse to be casually formed by circumstance. Instead, they practice the art of inner governance, directing their impulses, sharpening their minds, and disciplining their desires so that they do not become prisoners of their own emotions. This kind of person is uncommon not because they seek to be different, but because they commit to understanding themselves deeply. They ask questions others avoid. They embrace solitude that others fear. They study human nature, not as a detached observer, but as someone determined to navigate life consciously. And in doing so, they acquire a kind of emotional armor, a clarity of motive, and a sharpened instinct that makes them stand out in a world where most people are uncertain even of what they want. According to Machiavelli, one of the greatest sources of human suffering is the inability to confront reality as it is. Most individuals prefer comforting illusions, imagining that good intentions guarantee good outcomes, or that the world will naturally recognize and reward their efforts simply because they are sincere. But the rare individual sees the truth. Intention means little without action, and even action means little without strategy. This is why becoming rare requires a brutal honesty with oneself. You must be willing to see your weaknesses without flinching, acknowledge your fears without masking them, and confront your limitations with the intent to grow beyond them. This is not an easy path. It demands the emotional strength to strip away fantasies and stand naked before the truth of your own nature. But Machiavelli believed that only through such honesty can a person begin to wield real power. The power to adapt, to influence, to direct their destiny instead of drifting through it passively. To become rare, one must also understand time differently. Most people treat time as an invisible background, something that happens to them rather than something they actively engage with. Machiavelli, however, insisted that time is a strategic resource, one that punishes the unprepared and rewards the disciplined. A rare individual studies time, the timing of opportunities, the timing of silence, the timing of action, the timing of retreat. They learn to recognize when conditions are ripe, when doors are closing, when alliances must be formed, and when independence must be asserted. They do not move reactively, they move intentionally, aware that time can be a loyal ally or a merciless executioner. This perspective allows them to avoid the chaotic rush that defines most lives. Instead of being swept into impulsive decisions, they preserve their energy, choose their battles, and act with precision. Their rarity comes from this disciplined patience, from knowing that nothing meaningful is built in haste. Another principle Machiavelli emphasized is the necessity of understanding human nature. Not the idealistic version, but the real one. People are moved by self-interest, emotion, fear, pride, and desire far more often than by logic or fairness. A rare individual does not resent this truth, they study it. They read the intentions behind behavior, they observe the gaps between words and actions, and they learn to see the hidden currents in relationships. This understanding allows them to avoid manipulation while also making them capable of subtle influence, not in a malicious way, but in a conscious, strategic way. For Machiavelli never claimed that influence must be cruel. He claimed it must be intelligent. The rare person becomes a student of people. not to control them, but to navigate life with clarity in a world where most people misinterpret reality through the haze of their expectations and emotions. A core aspect of becoming rare is the mastery of emotional discipline. Machiavelli understood that unchecked emotions can destroy even the most talented individual. Anger leads to rash decisions, fear leads to paralysis, desire leads to dependency, pride leads to blindness. A rare person does not eliminate their emotions because emotions are human, but they govern them. They respond instead of reacting. They consider instead of assuming. They pause instead of exploding. This emotional intelligence gives them an aura of steadiness that others can sense. It makes them trustworthy, not because they are perfect, but because they are consistent. In a world where people are constantly swayed by impulses, the rare individual becomes a stable force, calm, reflective, and capable of seeing what others miss because their vision is not clouded by emotional storms. But Machiavelli also warned that becoming rare is not without cost. You will not be understood by everyone. Some will misinterpret your calmness as coldness, your independence as arrogance, your strategy as distance. Many people fear what they do not understand, and they often attack what they fear. But here is the truth Machiavelli knew well. Those who walk their own path will always be judged by those who cling to the familiar. This judgment is not a sign you are wrong. It is a sign you are evolving. The rare person accepts this. They do not waste energy trying to prove themselves to everyone. Instead, they choose their relationships with care, surrounding themselves with people who respect growth, clarity, and individuality. They understand that being rare sometimes means being alone, but that solitude is fertile soil for inner strength. To become rare is also to develop a kind of adaptability that most people never cultivate. Machiavelli admired individuals who could shift their mindset, strategy, and approach depending on the environment. He understood that rigidity breaks under pressure, while adaptability bends and survives. A rare person does not cling to one way of thinking simply because it feels comfortable. They learn, adjust, evolve, and refine themselves continuously. They understand that survival, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, belongs to those who are flexible. They do not fear change, they study it. They do not resist uncertainty, they prepare for it. And because of this, when crises arise, they do not crumble. They become even sharper, even more focused, because they have trained themselves to thrive under pressure. Machiavelli believed that the path to becoming rare begins not with external achievement, but with internal transformation. A rare individual is formed through hours of reflection, through self-questioning, through the willingness to shed outdated versions of themselves. They seek mastery over their inner world before attempting mastery over their outer world. They understand that if the mind is chaotic, the life will be chaotic. If the heart is unexamined, decisions will be misguided. So they cultivate a deep inner stillness, not in a mystical sense, but in a disciplined, grounded sense. This inner clarity becomes the foundation upon which everything else rests. Before they speak, they think. Before they act, they observe. Before they commit, they understand. And because of this, their life begins to take on a rare quality, a sense of direction, purpose, and intention that others instinctively recognize even if they cannot explain it. Machiavelli reminds us that becoming rare is not merely about how you move internally, but also about how you navigate the social and political landscapes of life. Every person lives within a web of relationships, family, friends, colleagues, communities. And most people drift through these relationships without ever realizing how profoundly they influence their mindset, emotional health, and opportunities. But the rare individual evaluates their relationships consciously. They understand that proximity is power. The people you spend time with shape the way you think, the risks you take, the dreams you believe in, and the limits you perceive. Machiavelli believed that a wise individual chooses companions who challenge their mind, expand their vision, and support their growth. To be rare means refusing to remain in circles that shrink your potential. It means stepping away from environments where mediocrity is celebrated and self-neglect is normalized. It means finding, or creating, spaces where ambition, clarity, and depth are welcome. Machiavelli also emphasized the importance of managing your reputation, not in a superficial or ego-driven way, but as a strategic necessity. Your reputation is how the world interprets you before you ever speak a word. And in many situations, decisions about you are made based on perception rather than truth. The rare individual understands this. They do not live for approval, but they are aware that perception influences opportunity. So they craft a reputation aligned with their values: reliability, intelligence, strength, integrity, composure. They do not gossip because gossip diminishes one's aura. They do not overshare because mystery protects influence. They do not act impulsively in public because consistency builds trust. Machiavelli knew that reputation is not built in dramatic moments, but in countless small decisions that signal who you are long before your intentions are ever questioned. In addition to reputation, Machiavelli believed in the power of restraint, a quality almost extinct today. Most people feel the need to react immediately, express instantly, and release every emotion without filter. But the rare individual practices restraint as a form of strength. They do not reveal everything they think. They do not expose their vulnerabilities where they are not safe. They do not give everyone access to their inner world. This restraint is not secrecy, it is sovereignty. It is the understanding that not everyone deserves the same level of access to your mind, your heart, or your plans. Machiavelli taught that the person who knows when to speak and when to remain silent holds a quiet authority. Silence, when used wisely, is power. It forces people to think, to wonder, to respect the boundaries they cannot cross. It transforms your presence from ordinary to rare. A crucial but often forgotten lesson Machiavelli offered is this: becoming rare requires courage. The courage to act when others hesitate. Most people wait for perfect conditions. The rare person understands that perfect conditions never exist. They study, they prepare, and then they act. They know that boldness, when paired with intelligence, creates opportunities that timid people never encounter. Courage does not mean recklessness, it means calculated decisiveness. It means choosing movement over stagnation, initiative over passivity, direction over drift. Machiavelli admired those who were bold enough to seize moments rather than waiting for them. And he believed that fortune favors the daring, not the loud, not the reckless, but the strategically brave. The rare individual also understands the delicate balance between kindness and firmness. Machiavelli, often misunderstood as promoting cruelty, actually emphasized something much more nuanced: the necessity of boundaries. Kindness is a virtue, but unguarded kindness invites exploitation. Firmness is a strength, but untempered firmness becomes tyranny. To be rare is to master this balance, to be compassionate without being naive, to be strong without being harsh. You learn to say no without guilt. You learn to protect your energy without apology. You learn to give generously, but not foolishly. Machiavelli believed that this balance is what preserves your dignity and your power. It ensures that your kindness does not make you weak, and your strength does not make you feared unnecessarily. It is a form of maturity that few ever reach, which is why those who do become unmistakably rare. Another hallmark of the rare person is the ability to endure discomfort, emotional, intellectual, and practical. Most people seek comfort relentlessly, avoiding anything that challenges their assumptions or stretches their limits. But Machiavelli believed that greatness is forged in discomfort. Growth begins where comfort ends. The rare individual understands this, so they willingly step into situations that test them. They pursue skills that are difficult, conversations that are uncomfortable, and decisions that require maturity. They understand that endurance builds character, and that character builds destiny. Their willingness to face discomfort makes them adaptable, courageous, and resilient, qualities that make them stand apart in a world that increasingly avoids anything that feels challenging. Machiavelli also insisted that rare individuals understand the importance of self-reliance, not isolation, not arrogance, but inner independence. They are grateful for support, but not dependent on it. They can stand alone emotionally, financially, intellectually, and spiritually if necessary. They build skills that allow them to survive and thrive regardless of circumstance. They cultivate a mind that can make decisions even in uncertainty. They create a vision that does not collapse when others disagree. This self-reliance gives them a calmness that others can feel. They walk into rooms differently, not with loud pride, but with quiet assurance. They do not demand respect. Their presence naturally earns it. And in a world where many people crumble without constant approval, this inner independence makes them extraordinarily rare. To become rare is also to have an unshakable relationship with purpose. Machiavelli believed that purposeless people are easily manipulated, easily discouraged, and easily lost. But a person with purpose moves with a different kind of energy. They know what they are building. They know what they are protecting. They know what they are sacrificing for. Their purpose becomes a compass guiding them through confusion, temptation, and pressure. A rare individual does not chase every opportunity. They evaluate which ones align with their purpose. They do not live reactively. They live intentionally. They do not waste years wandering blindly. They build steadily, strategically, and with conviction. And because purpose is so scarce in the modern world, those who possess it become unforgettable. Finally, Machiavelli teaches that becoming rare is not a destination. It is a practice, a lifelong commitment to self-awareness, clarity, discipline, and strategic wisdom. It requires reflection, courage, restraint, adaptability, and purpose. It demands that you walk your own path even when the world pressures you to conform. But here is the profound truth. The rare individual becomes a light in a world full of noise, a steady force in a world full of uncertainty, a conscious creator in a world full of passengers. They move differently, think differently, and live differently, not because they are superior, but because they are conscious. And consciousness, true consciousness, is the rarest quality of all. So, if you choose this path, understand that the journey will ask much of you. The ability to shape your life with intention, awareness, and strength. The ability to become rare. This is the Golden Philosophy channel. Like the video, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more videos like this one. Thank you for watching.